Hello. I was just going to talk about children and hypnosis today, mainly because I had my youngest client so far yesterday. I had a lovely 9-year-old girl here for hypnosis yesterday, and it took, less than 40 minutes, maybe just under 40 minutes. So it's always a bit of an experiment with children because a lot depends on the age of the child, how mature the child is, and it has to be really carefully tailored for the child. There are certain kind of difficulties, you might kind of say, when you're working with children, but it's more you as a therapist that has to take it on the nose, because children do tend to fidget a lot, even in hypnosis. So it can be quite distracting for you because you're kind of questioning yourself, thinking, is this child in hypnosis, are they not? But the experience I had yesterday was actually really, really nice. Lovely little quiet girl. And just before we came upstairs to the office here, I said, well, let's practice with Mummy first. We used Mummy as the test model and practiced the eye technique with her, and Mummy got it straight away, which was great. Because sometimes I get adults up here and we practice the eye test where we look up like this and keep your eyes up there, and we ask you to close your eyelids down while your eyeballs are up. And I find it difficult to do and talk at the same time. It's one of these that are tricky to demonstrate and talk at the same time. It always makes me laugh. Anyway, Mum could do it straight away. So the one thing that's really important with children is that you kind of explain the process on their level so that they feel comfortable with it, and it's something that they're happy to do, because hypnosis is not something that works when you're really, really resistant or you're not open to it. But the good thing about children is they're often curious. So we got this little girl up here and she managed to, I explained I made sure that she understood what magnets are, because we do a little process that's a suggestibility test that brings your hands together as if you've got magnets in the palms of your hands and they drop down into your lap. So it's important to kind of, and especially for me, as somebody that has no children and forgets like what children do at certain ages or what they're capable of at certain ages, I had to quickly Google, what kids of 9 years old are learning, what they can comprehend and such. But yeah, just made sure that my client was familiar with everything that I was going to use before I used it. And we had a little bit of a chat about what the subconscious mind actually is and made sure she understood what that was. But what's brilliant about children is that they are highly creative by nature. They haven't had, all of the creativity banged out of them as most of us do by the time we hit a certain age. So the younger the child, the more they're still mostly subconscious in a natural way. Anyway, they spend more time in the subconscious minds because obviously they're playing all of the time, they're dreaming, the visualizing, the creating with the hands, they spend a lot of time in daydream mode. And as kind of we've spoken about before, one of the reasons why children find long journeys difficult is they don't track time in the way that adults do with our logical, rational minds. It's because they exist in their subconscious minds a lot. That's why you get that thing of, are we there yet? Because they're literally not tracking time. A minute can seem like an hour. But that's why hypnosis is so useful for children, because it's catering to that mind that they're spending most of the waking hours in anyway. So we had a little talk about how when you first wake up on a morning, or just the last thing at night when your eyes are closing and you're not really ready, you might want to read your book a little bit longer, whatever it is. Both of those times you're in a form of hypnosis. It's either the hypnopompic stage or the hypnagogic stage. So you're in one of those morning and evening every day naturally. That's just a form of hypnosis when you're switching over to that subconscious state. So we had a little talk about that and how your brain's like a computer it's like you're programming a computer all of the time. And the subconscious mind, if you like, is the processor. So we kind of got all of that on board. And you're never sure with kids. Well, mind you, you're never sure with adults how these things will go. But yeah, I got on with the session, and this child was just so amazing because she just got it straight away. She did the eye technique straight away, because that's the thing, isn't it? Adults tend to question it. You know, you think, oh, I've been asked to do this thing that I never get asked to do. And it's like, oh, I'm going to overthink this now and I'm going to make it really hard for myself. Whereas children says, oh, that sounds fun. I'm going to do that and do that thing. And it's like, there's not even a reaction out of them because they're just like, well, you've told me to do it. You know, because children believe everything. So if you've told me I can do that, I believe I can do that. So I'm just going to do it. Whereas adults are like questioning it all and making it hard and screwing their eyes and using the muscles and doing all of the rest of it. So it was brilliant, and she did the magnets perfectly, and yeah, it was just interesting to watch her little face throughout. So we kind of do tend to tailor it. So rapid transformational therapy is kind of appropriate if it's like, you know, an older child, because there's that thing of, with a child, they're to trust you enough, even in hypnosis, to kind of want to open up to you. So it can be a bit of you have to kind of gauge it with children as to whether you think they're going to open up to you in that way, or whether they're going to feel comfortable enough to do that, or whether they're even going to explain the process. There's occasional times with RTT where somebody just doesn't really understand some of the tools. They don't get where you're trying to take them. So some of the other methods I have can be really, really useful in that case. So yesterday I was like, when I was preparing for it over the weekend, I was like, I don't know if a 6-step reframe process is going to work for this age of child, whether they'll get it, whether they'll be on board, but let's try it because it'd be really useful. And 6-step reframe is when we just get your mind to find the part of your mind that's causing the problem, and we ask it to do something else for you instead. So I thought, well, if I can just tailor the language a bit and make it more childlike and for that age level, well, let's see if the mind will get on board and do it and use the hands to signal their approval or disapproval, you know, or whether they're willing to do something else. So it was really lovely yesterday to watch this 9-year-old child and her subconscious mind saying, oh yeah, we can do something else. We don't mind doing that. We can come up with something else other than the thing that you're currently doing that you don't want to be doing. And then it just comes down to a little hypnotic metaphor story. And with a child, it's important to understand what they like, you know, what their favourite things are, you know, what the favourite Disney character is, or are they more of a Harry Potter or more of a Roald Dahl type child, you know, whatever it is, and we can tailor it to that. And the more creative you can make it, the better. And what was really nice yesterday was, I've never watched Moana, but one of this little girl's things was Moana. So I went off and had a little Google what Moana is, and Moana is a wayfinder apparently. So I thought, oh, I can absolutely work with that, because what are we asking your subconscious mind? We're asking your subconscious mind to find a new way of being. So you know what I mean? The lovely thing about hypnosis, I guess, and why it appeals to me, is it makes me engage my creative brain too, because every client is different and every client has different needs. Some people are motivated towards a goal. Some people are motivated by moving away from something that's painful or not causing somebody else pain. You know, it's about repercussions, whereas some people are just like eyes on the prize. This is what I want. I don't know how to get there. Can you help me? And everybody's got that different, a different way of processing and storing memories. You might be more visual, you might be more auditory, you might be more feeling, or you might be very black and white, what we call auditory digital, where you just want it quick and fast. And yeah, I get it, I don't need any more information, that'll just confuse me. You just, you know, it's like that kind of thing. So a big part of hypnotherapy is understanding you as a client, which is why I like to have these free calls ahead of time, and more specifically Zoom calls, because then I can see your face and your body language. So yeah, my session went really well yesterday, and what I did decide to do was make her a little recording as well of the hypnotherapy story. I wasn't going to, because it's not necessarily necessary with 6-step reframe, but I'm all for a belt and braces way of approaching things too. So I decided to do that as well. And what is also really, really useful, I do find, in hypnosis, is to do a bit of association and dissociation. putting you kind of in the role of being the observer while you're in hypnosis. So kind of after we've done like a significant portion of the work, it can be really helpful when you're in hypnosis to have you picture what that ideal you looks like, you know, a day from now, a week from now, next month, next year. We'll get some pictures in the client's mind of what will they be doing, what will you be feeling, what will you see about yourself that's different when you look in the mirror, what will you notice. So get them to do that, to dissociate and look at themselves as an observer in the ideal state, and then have them associate back into that new version. So now step into that and see what it feels like to be doing all of those things and feeling all of those things. Because while you're doing that in hypnosis, you're getting the client's brain to start calculating how to get you there. That gives your brain the direct instruction, like, this is what we want, this is what we want to be like, this is what we want to feel like. Now you tell us, you figure out how to get you there. Because that's the thing about your mind. We don't use our minds as we should use our minds. Our minds want to help us. They're there to serve us. They're there to keep us alive on this planet, and they tend to get a bit scared and a bit stuck. So sometimes you need to get unstuck. You need to help your mind say, no, I get you trying to keep me safe, you're trying to keep me secure, but it's actually not serving us because it's keeping us small, it's keeping us trapped in bad habits. Can you actually do it this way? Because this is what we actually want to be like. So that's why I find that dissociation and associating people back into this new sense of self can be really powerful. I've sometimes kind of been in a session and I've kind of looked at the session time. I don't generally take an account of how long somebody's been in hypnosis, but sometimes I try to bring people back sooner because you can get bored even in hypnosis, and we don't want people getting bored, you know what I mean? We want it to be an enjoyable process. So sometimes I've almost been about to leave that out, that dissociation, association, and my mind's gone, no, do a bit of it. And somewhere down the line, that's been the really powerful thing, as it turned out, because the client said, oh God, yeah, I really saw that. I could really see what I was doing. I could see what I was wearing, and I was doing this, and I was looking, I thought, wow, it's a good job I thought to put that in, you know, that I didn't duck out of it because of time or whatever, or thinking somebody was in there too long. And that's why it's so important when you do work with a hypnotherapist that you really go to somebody who's thinking about you as an individual, that's not just doing it by rote. Because I look at every person individually and calculate what they're going to need. And I'm also watching the face and the body language in hypnosis to see, you know, because you'll get a lot, because you'll get a little smile go on, you'll get some grimacing, you'll get all kinds of things, you'll get signs of letting go. So it's really, you know, sometimes I'm literally like there just watching for any kind of little thing that is there that tells me whether I'm going in the right direction, or whether the client's getting, or whether the client's uncomfortable, whatever it is. But yeah, it's fascinating working with children. It's both a little bit scary because you think, please just go into hypnosis and don't fidget so much that I can't work with you. And also at the same time, it's an awful lot less complex than an adult, because an adult has not built up layers and layers and layers of resistance. You know, there's not so many levels to it, you know. That's kind of both the beauty and the problem with being a child, is that you believe whatever you're told by an adult. So that's why it's so important what imprints you're putting on your child, and not giving them, you know, those adult responsibilities that they can never kind of do successfully, you know, to be tidy, be clean, be exactly the way so-and-so other person's child is, or exactly like someone else in this family or that family, or, you know, not to say things that are unintentionally cruel or harmful, because a child just soaks it up like a sponge. So in your like conscious mind life, that's a problem, and you've always to be on guard with children, that you're saying the right kinds of things to them. But when it comes to like hypnosis, it's very, very useful to have them just very, very open to any and all positive suggestions. And it's your child is never too young to have a load of positive stuff pumped into their subconscious mind that tells them that they're clever, that they're courageous, that they're beautiful, that they're perfect exactly the way they are, that they can do anything that they want to in this life. You know, that kind of also kind of protects them against any future bullying that they might encounter and things like this. And that was kind of it wasn't the child's issue yesterday, but I always put a bit of that in when it comes to children, kind of about resilience and not taking things, you know, personally, and about being aware that what somebody says to you is their problem and not yours. You know, it's not aimed at you. It's, you know, I'm always kind of like prepping kids for that, because you never know what kids are going to encounter in life. And when you do the right work with them when they're young, that's with them for life, you know, because that's the kind of thing with your subconscious mind. It does hang on to stuff, good or bad. So if you can get it hanging on to good stuff young, that's going to be really powerful for your child while they're moving through, like, you know, the exams and changing schools and all of that over the years. If you give them coping skills young, and you make sure that they realise that whatever happens in life, whatever somebody says to them, whatever somebody else's opinion of them is, that doesn't ever affect the beauty of what they are underneath and what they're capable of. So that's why hypnotherapy can be really powerful for children. And also, it's just that thing of, you know, it can be RTT, which involves them talking to me, but there's also the option of not having to share with me, and me not having to understand the whole problem in order to do the work. You know, I've kind of worked with, you know, older teenagers, and it can be tricky to get them to open up about fears and what's bothering them. So it's really helpful to have ways of working with them that don't involve them sharing the deepest, darkest thoughts with me as well. I can do a lot just from having a little understanding of what the problem is, as long as I can get some sense of, like I said before, what the motivation strategy is, whether they're more visual, auditory, and all of the rest of it. That all gives me things that I can work with without having knowledge of what the problem, all the intricacies of the problem, I would say. So yeah, it was a very interesting day yesterday, and that is the beauty of hypnotherapy as a practitioner, is you learn. Marissa Peer says it in our training, and it's very, very true, that you do learn something from every client. Every client will throw up either a problem or a solution or a bit of information that you'd never thought about for yourself, about some people's thought processes or what matters to them. You know, it never hurts to be reminded that we all think very, very differently, and we've got different perceptions of the world, you know, because we do fall into that trap of thinking everybody thinks like us when they absolutely don't, you know. So it is very, very true that with every client I treat, it unveils something in me and gives me something to think about and apply to my own life often. So it's a really, really good, and I find challenging job to do. I never go into, I don't know whether years down the line I'll ever be totally relaxed about doing this work. I think it's maybe a case of I just care too much about results and outcomes. I mean, that's not a bad thing if you're a client of mine. But yeah, I do feel really, really driven to make sure there is the outcome the client wants. And maybe I tend to worry about it more than your average person maybe who's doing it. But yeah, I've always got a bit of adrenaline going on when a new client comes, because it is the unpredictability of it. It is the nature of it, and having to be on your toes as a therapist for what we can only deal with what comes up, you know. Long gone are the days when you can entirely rely on a script for a client and just put them into hypnosis and read that by rote. That's not going to give long-term results. You have to work with what the client gives you to work with in that moment. That's what you're dealing with. You can't just say, oh no, I don't want to deal with that. I want to do it this way, that I've practiced and rehearsed. You know, you're never going to quite get that with hypnotherapy. It's very rare that it's just as straightforward as that. Although it was lovely with my little girl client yesterday. She just really, really got it. All you have to do is engage their imagination, and that's really, really easy with a child. It's really easy to distract them in a good way, and make change really, really fast. So that was very interesting yesterday. So if you're interested either in terms of your child or for you as an adult in the various ways in which I can work with you, you can book a free call at www.charmedlifetherapy.co.uk/call. Please do consider liking my videos if you're ever watching them, because it all does just help me. If you're on YouTube, you can hit subscribe as well, or share if you think it would be of use to somebody. I'm really grateful for any and all help that I receive in terms of promoting my content and getting seen by more people. And don't forget, if you are on YouTube particularly, but on Facebook too, I always do put free resources as well in some of my content, because there's so much on my website under the more button, in terms of free help, free support, free information. I don't know why I'm losing my voice, but anyway, thank you very much, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye bye.